March 4th, 1918. Private Albert Gitchell, an Army cook at Camp Funston in Fort Riley, Kansas, reports to the base hospital with a fever, sore throat, and headache. Within hours, over 100 of his fellow soldiers report similar symptoms. No one at the camp realizes it yet, but these are likely the first documented cases of what will become the deadliest pandemic in modern history. In just 18 months, this flu will kill more people than the 4 years of World War I. The influenza epidemic that swept the world in 1918 killed an estimated 50 million people. 1/5 of the world's population was attacked by this deadly virus. The story actually begins 2 months earlier, and 300 miles west of Fort Riley. In January 1918, in Haskell County, Kansas, an isolated county with a population of just 1,720 people spread over 578 square miles. Dr. Loring Minor witnesses an outbreak of influenza so unusual that he warns the U.S. Public Health Service. Haskell County is the first recorded instance anywhere in the world of an outbreak of influenza so unusual that a physician warned public health officials. The county's young men, many of them farmers who raised hogs and poultry, soon begin reporting to Fort Riley for military training. They carry the virus with them. On the 4th of March 1918, an outbreak appears at Fort Riley, with as many as 500 soldiers hospitalized within a week. By 11 March 1918, the virus has reached Queens, New York. Within a month, the outbreak at Fort Riley seems to subside, and military officials breathe a sigh of relief. But this is only the beginning. Many of these soldiers are sent to Europe to help fight in World War I, and while in Europe, the disease mutates and becomes deadly. The timing couldn't be worse. America has just entered the Great War, and hundreds of thousands of young men are being shipped to Europe in cramped troop transports. During the crossing of the Atlantic, the 15th U.S. Cavalry incurs 36 cases of influenza, resulting in 6 deaths. By April 1918, the flu has spread to military camps across America and to France. The influenza shows no bias in its approach to the combatants in World War I. Men from all sides are sickened and killed. Great Britain reports 31,000 influenza cases in June alone. The flu proves such a leveler of men that carefully planned military attacks have to be postponed due to shortages of healthy soldiers. But this first wave is relatively mild. Most soldiers recover after a few days of fever and aches. By summer, case numbers begin declining across Europe and North America. Military doctors call it 3-day fever and don't think much of it. The world's attention is focused on the battlefields of France, where millions are dying in the trenches. No one pays much attention to what seems like an ordinary flu outbreak. That's about to change. In August 1918, the virus returns, and this time, it's a killer. A more lethal type of disease is recognized, and this form fully emerges in August 1918. This second wave strikes with terrifying speed and violence. Pneumonia often develops quickly, with death usually coming 2 days after the first indications of the flu. One physician writes that patients with seemingly ordinary influenza would rapidly develop the most viscous type of pneumonia that has ever been seen, and later, when cyanosis appeared in the patients, it is simply a struggle for air until they suffocate. Another physician recalls that influenza patients died struggling to clear their airways of a blood-tinged froth that sometimes gushed from their nose and mouth. What makes this flu uniquely terrifying is who it kills. In the 2 later waves, about half the deaths are among 20 to 40-year-olds. An unusual mortality age pattern for influenza. The flu is most deadly for people ages 20 to 40. This pattern of morbidity is unusual for influenza, which is usually a killer of the elderly and young children. Healthy adults, the very people who should be most resistant to disease, are dying by the millions. Pregnant women are especially vulnerable. The virus seems to trigger a massive overreaction of the immune system, turning the body's own defenses against itself. Healthy young people with strong immune systems suffer the most. The pandemic spreads with terrifying speed across every continent. The microscopic killer circles the entire globe in 4 months. In the 2 years that this scourge ravages the earth, 1/5 of the world's population is infected. From the battlefields of Europe, it spreads north to Norway, east to China, southeast to India, and as far south as New Zealand. Naval ships and merchant vessels carry it to Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, the Philippines, and Hawaii. Remote islands in the Pacific, places that have been isolated for centuries, are suddenly devastated by a disease from the other side of the world. The global death toll is almost incomprehensible. Estimates vary greatly, but a 2005 estimate puts the death toll at 50 million, and possibly as high as 100 million, is believed to have suffered at least 12.5 million deaths during the pandemic. Some 12-17 million people died in India, about 5% of the population. The decade between 1911 and 1921 is the only census period in which India's population falls, mostly due to devastation of the pandemic. About 675,000 people died in the United States. Soldiers die from the 1,918 flu, then are killed in battle during the war. In just 1 year, 1918, the average life expectancy in America plummets by a dozen years. The name Spanish flu is a cruel irony. The pandemic broke out near the end of World War I, when wartime censors in the belligerent countries suppressed bad news to maintain morale, but newspapers freely reported the outbreak in neutral Spain, creating a false impression of Spain as the epicenter and leading to the Spanish flu misnomer. Spain wasn't hit any harder than other countries, but because Spanish newspapers, unlike those in countries at war, freely reported the outbreak, the world mistakenly believed Spain was the source. It's a reminder that in times of crisis, censorship and propaganda can distort our understanding of reality. In cities across America and Europe, normal life grinds to a halt. Emergency measures to contain the epidemic include closing cinemas and theaters or prohibiting other types of gathering, including funerals. Even sounding death bells is sometimes forbidden to prevent their continual dismal tolling from revealing the extent of the tragedy. Schools close. Businesses shut their doors. Public gatherings are banned. People are ordered to wear masks in public. Those who refuse face fines or arrest. Some communities close all stores or require customers to leave orders outside. The medical system is completely overwhelmed. Healthcare workers cannot tend the sick, nor can gravediggers bury the dead because they too are ill. Mass graves are dug by steam, shovel and bodies buried without coffins in many places. Funeral parlors are overwhelmed and bodies pile up. Many people have to dig graves for their own family members. Nurses become an invaluable asset to communities as the remaining doctors quickly become overwhelmed and in many cases sick themselves. One nurse finds a husband dead in the same room where his wife lay with newly born twins. It has been 24 hours since the death and the births, and the wife has had no food but an apple which happens to lie within reach. Wikipedia. Doctors are helpless. In 1918, medical science doesn't even know that influenza is caused by a virus. They think it's caused by a bacterium. Although official communications issued by health authorities worldwide express certainty about the etiology of the infection, in laboratories it is not always possible to isolate the famous Pfeiffer's bacillus, which is, at that time, deemed to be the cause of influenza. Without understanding the true cause, effective treatment is impossible. There aren't any antiviral medications to treat influenza, and medical professionals don't even know that influenza is caused by a virus yet. World History Encyclopedia. The virus causes lung damage, allowing bacterial infections to develop. These bacterial infections are a common cause of death, and antibiotics aren't available to treat infections at that time. Some treatments doctors prescribe actually make things worse. Before the spike in deaths attributed to the Spanish flu in 1918, the U.S. Surgeon General, Navy, and the Journal of the American Medical Association all recommend the use of aspirin, advising patients to take up to 30 grams per day, a dose now known to be toxic. Symptoms of aspirin poisoning include hyperventilation and pulmonary edema, or the buildup of fluid in the lungs, and it's now believed that many of the October deaths are actually caused or hastened by aspirin poisoning. In their desperation to do something, anything to help, doctors inadvertently kill thousands of their patients. Children skip rope to a grim new rhyme that captures the horror of the age. I had a little bird. Its name was Enza. I opened the window, and influenza. The unseen enemy mainly attacks young people, causing major social upheaval. If Spanish flu does not take the lives of children, it makes them orphans. The flu takes a heavy human toll, wiping out entire families and leaving countless widows and orphans in its wake. Some places suffer catastrophically. Bristol Bay, a region of Alaska populated by indigenous people, suffers a death rate of 40%, with some villages entirely disappearing. Indigenous communities, with no previous exposure to influenza viruses and living in crowded conditions, are particularly vulnerable. Entire villages are wiped out in a matter of weeks. By late 1918, the pandemic begins to wane, but not before a third wave strikes in the winter of 1918 to 1919. In Japan, the flu breaks out again in December and spreads rapidly throughout the country. Between October 1919 and 23, January 1920, 780,000 cases are reported across the country, with at least 20,000 deaths recorded by that date. By December 1918, much of the world is once again flu-free, and in early 1919, Australia lifts its quarantine measures. By spring 1919, The virus has burned itself out. As quickly and mysteriously as it appeared, the pandemic ends. Why did it stop? No one knows for certain. The virus didn't disappear because of medical intervention. There was no vaccine, no effective treatment. Pharmaceutical companies work around the clock to come up with a vaccine to fight the Spanish flu, but they are too late. The virus disappears before they can even isolate it. Most likely, so many people had been infected that the virus ran out of susceptible hosts. The survivors had immunity, and the virus had nowhere left to go. Or perhaps the virus mutated into a less deadly form. We'll never know for certain. The 1,918 pandemic left scars that would last for generations. The flu is detrimental to the economy. Labor shortages cripple industry. Agricultural production falls. The social fabric is torn apart. Families are destroyed. Some historians argue that the pandemic may have influenced the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. President Woodrow Wilson himself reportedly contracted the flu in early 1919 while negotiating the treaty, and some suggest the illness affected his judgment during the crucial final negotiations. Today we know what the doctors of 1,918 could not. A virus called Influenza type A, subtype H1N1, is now known to have been the cause of the extreme mortality of the influenza pandemic of 1,919. Researchers think the first cases in humans started in early 1918, possibly in military camps in the U.S. Sequencing and reconstruction of the 1,918 virus have allowed scientists to answer many questions about its origin and pathogenicity, although many questions remain. But here's the unsettling truth. The 1,918 virus never really left us. The 1,918 virus was not just responsible for the millions of global deaths during the pandemic itself, but also for the millions of additional influenza-related deaths that have occurred in the past century. Most flu viruses today are descended from the virus that caused the pandemic. The descendants of the 1,918 virus remain today as annually circulating and evolving influenza viruses causing significant mortality each year. Every seasonal flu we experience is, in a sense, an echo of 1,918. The lessons of 1,918 remain urgently relevant. For centuries before 1918, influenza was a significant public health concern, and now, 100 years after the Great Pandemic, it remains a major problem, both in terms of unpredictable pandemics and annual seasonal epidemic recurrences of variable severity. History strongly supports that there will be future influenza pandemics. The question isn't if another pandemic will come, but when. And we may be more vulnerable now than we were in 1918. We travel and tour the world. More you can travel from one continent to another in a matter of hours now, and someone unknowingly harboring a disease can bring it from one country to another, passing the disease along to other travelers before they ever show signs of the disease. A virus that once took months to circle the globe could now do so in days. The Spanish flu killed an estimated 50 to 100 million people in 18 months, more than both world wars combined. It struck without warning, killed with shocking speed, and vanished almost as mysteriously as it appeared. It didn't discriminate between soldiers and civilians, rich and poor, warring nations or neutral countries. It proved that nature, not nations, is the most dangerous force humanity faces. The 1,918 pandemic stands as a stark reminder of our vulnerability in the face of invisible enemies. But it's also a testament to human resilience. Society bent but did not break. Cities that lost a quarter of their population rebuilt. Families that were torn apart found ways to carry on. And from the ashes of that terrible year came advances in public health, epidemiology, and our understanding of infectious disease that continue to protect us today. The Spanish flu was humanity's deadliest pandemic of the modern era. Those who lived through it called it the plague. They watched helplessly as their loved ones drowned in their own lungs, as mass graves were dug, as civilization itself seemed to teeter on the edge of collapse. And yet they survived. They endured. They rebuilt. The Spanish flu killed 50 million people in 18 months, but it didn't kill hope. And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson of all.